So I spent my last 20 years, misspent years doing startups. So actually, before I start, thank you to Nisa for organizing this, telling you for kicking it off and everything. So I want to share some stories and some lessons from the last 20 years of startups. So first of all, spending the last 15 years in Silicon Valley, there's kind of this myth of the founder, which is that there's this great meritocracy and it's all this great skill, and there is some skill, but really it's about placing a whole bunch of bets and getting lucky. And so the trick is I'm going to try and teach you how to place some good bets. So the first company we did was called Kapoof. And much like the name, we went kapoof, which means we went bankrupt. Or when you're pitching your next startup, it was a learning lesson. So the first lesson is that VCs have lots of money. And they give money to lots of startups, and they want you to spend that money as quickly as possible because they want to see who's going to win and put more money in them so they own more of the company, and who's going to lose so you can go bankrupt and they cannot talk to you again. You have one pot of money, and when you run out, it is game over. As I mentioned, it was game over for us. So old times, this $2,500 CRT monitor, that sold for $400 at auction when we went bankrupt. All startups are powered by foosball. This $1,800 foosball table went for about $750. Interesting enough, there was no IKEA in Boston when we started this company, and so a whole bunch of IKEA desks were shipped from New York to Boston. This $99 desk went for $149 each. It must have been the craftsmanship. But it was also I first learned about arbitrage. So one of the lessons was, I personally like having a co-founder. So this was my co-founder for the next two companies, James Park. You're going to go through ups and downs in a startup. It's nice to have someone riding that roller coaster with you. This nice photo was on the front of the Business Times, or section of the Financial Times. Unfortunately, it's accompanied by a headline about us being hamstrung by delays, telling how we're going to go out of business and things like that. Luckily, we did not, but nonetheless. First company, again, mentioned didn't go anywhere. Amorphous middleware. Middleware makes everyone's eyes glaze over, except for a few customers. Turns out friends and family were really bored when we talked about it. So our second company was a photo sharing site. People understood photo sharing. That was a lot of fun. Consumer stuff was enjoyable. That was a success. We sold it for return to our investors. But there were also lessons to be learned. So first lesson, business model. Other than potentially Google AdWords, no one makes good things for consumers and for advertisers. And so we basically had the people who were trying to make money fighting tooth and nail with the people trying to make the best user experience. So kind of, it was a little bit unhealthy culture. We also pivoted a lot. We started off as a general purpose distributed file sharing system. We pivoted, all startups pivot. The trick is to know when to pivot and when not. Most recent startup, which I guess is not really a startup anymore, Fitbit. We make health and fitness stuff. We try and make the world a healthier place. It seems kind of quaint at the time. We were both in our late 20s. We said we're getting too old for this. All those young people are starting companies. They're running circles around us. We want to do hardware. It's a nice barrier to entry. It turns out hardware is called hardware for a reason. It is hard. We learned a lot. We knew, again, nothing about hardware, but we learned about manufacturing, we learned about shipping. We learned about all kinds of stuff. The only way we did this is because people gave us advice. So if you're starting a company, don't be afraid to ask for stuff. It is amazing who will give you advice for free. Mark Benioff wrote to help@fitbit.com saying, hey, I like what you're doing, can I help you? By the way, he's the founder and CEO of Salesforce. Real people give you advice. Now, you're probably going to ignore the useful advice. The best advice I ever got was don't make your own custom charging contacts. We ignored it. We then shipped a year and a half late. You will have near-death experiences as a startup. The trick between a successful startup and an unsuccessful startup is it a near-death experience or is it a death experience? Avoid the death experiences. So as I mentioned, no death experience for this one. We did go public. That bell on the New York Stock Exchange, it looks kind of really nice. Everyone's sitting there clapping, nice buzzer. Turns out there's a whole bunch of wires coming off that buzzer. It looks really sketchy, kind of Raspberry Pi-esque. We're not really a startup anymore, so we've learned some interesting lessons. One of the things that I've learned as we've grown is, when you're a small startup, you've got 4 people in a room, everyone's on the same page. You get bigger, kind of like a tree full of monkeys. At the top, when you're looking down, all you see are smiling faces. You're at the bottom, you're looking up, all you see are asses. And so, that what people see at the bottom is very different from what people see at the top is important. But it does come with some nice things. So we have 600 trillion heartbeats in our system. We've got 5 million years of sleep data. There's some really cool stuff we're doing around on health. If anyone wants to talk about how we can change health digitally, please come and talk to me at the cocktail hour later. But for now, when people ask me, when's a good time to start a startup? It never gets easier. There's no time like the present to jump in the deep end. It is cold, there are sharks swimming in there, it is deep, but it's a lot of fun. So, thank you.